Cityan. I was born and raised in the suburbs of Kansas City and raised my family there and never left. Kansas City's always kind of held a special place as far as the city goes. I lived there for 11 years. The Chiefs have always been a team that have particularly excited me. I don't really get excited about any real sports, but I do get excited about the Chiefs. And the parades have always been a big deal around here when it comes to, like, when the Royals won the World Series. The parade and meeting down at Union Station was huge for this city. It was such a prideful day. We hadn't had anything like that happen since 1985 on any professional team. And then the Chiefs do it just a few years later, and and then same thing. They have this massive parade and gathering at Union Station. And this time, they of course had the shooting, and it's devastating. It's devastating in the city because that's one of the coolest things about the city. Now, I made a video a few days ago kind of talking about the reality, what really happened there, because when the mayor got on, he immediately turned his attention to gun control. Like, we have to have stricter gun laws. And right away, I thought, based off eyewitnesses and every account of what happened, these were thugs. These were young thugs who, at the time, I said, I'm sure, didn't legally own guns. And now, what we know is they for sure weren't legal guns, because based off eyewitnesses' account, there's multiple shooters. The police have made 2 arrests so far, but the FBI are asking for footage and things like that. But it all started because 2 people got their pride hurt, like maybe somebody pushed somebody or said somebody wrong. And of course, they're surrounded by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people all crowded together, and they just decide to start blasting off rounds at each other. And I talked about, the fact that those were illegal guns. Well, now we know they are, because both of the people arrested so far are minors. And minors can't go to a store and buy a gun. They can't do that. And they were handguns at that. One of the guns, I'm certain, was a Glock 22, a 40 caliber Glock 22. And the only reason I know that is because there was another man arrested who found one of the guns on the ground and picked it up and then was arrested for that. And it was a Glock 22, 40 caliber. But I do know for a fact that none of the guns used in this scenario were legal guns. And there is absolutely no gun law that is currently in place, or that Congress is looking into, or that anybody has even thought of, that would have prevented 2 young teenage boys from accessing illegal firearms, because they were illegal firearms. So gun control wouldn't have played any role in this shooting in Kansas City at all. 0 role. If Missouri was like California and we had super strict gun laws, it still would have happened. That's the problem that I'm having with this, is that they immediately turned to gun laws, but the guns used in the shooting were illegal handguns that were illegally owned by teenagers who, I'm willing to bet, this is not their first run-in with the law. Typically when thugs carry guns illegally, they don't holster them. They're very irresponsible with them. They probably stuff them in their underwear or their pockets. It's terrible. It's terrible that this happened. So maybe the solution is actually, let's start putting criminals in jail for longer periods of time. Maybe that. We live in a country where there's this social acceptance that jail just doesn't work. We just need to let them go, because we're just filling our jails with criminals who have only committed some crimes. So what? Fill them with all sorts of criminals. And the other piece is the mental health issue. when you have young men and women, middle-aged men and women, old men and women losing their minds because they got their Starbucks order wrong, or like, you know, because you cut them off in traffic, they're going to murder your whole family and run you off the road. Like, people are losing their minds. There's a mental health crisis in this country where people are just barely hanging on by a thread. And as soon as somebody looks at them wrong, regardless of whether they're in a crowd of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, they're going to start blasting off rounds because their pride got hurt. Like, how dare you insult me? This is where we're at, you know, and both these young men are going to be treated as adults or tried as adults. They're already going through that process, and I am certain there's going to be more arrests, but this is where it starts with these two. I guess I won't say I'm certain, but so many accounts of more than two shooters. Maybe there were some who were shooting in self-defense. I don't know. But what I do know is, based on the two arrests, one of them carrying a Glock 22 40 caliber, were very, very illegal. They're minors. They can't even go buy a long gun, let alone a handgun. There's no way they went to a gun store and filled out a NICS background check and passed it. So to suggest that somehow taking my guns away would have prevented that situation is insulting. It's insulting. It's insulting to me as a Kansas Cityan, because you're not actually doing anything about the problem. If you wanted to do something about the problem, you would put people in jail for a much longer period of time. You'd have much stiffer sentences and a higher arrest rate for gun crime specifically. You would deal with the mental health crisis in the city. And until you talk about those two things, you're doing nothing to change it. If you somehow make it harder for me to pass a background check to buy a gun, that would have done nothing to prevent what took place at the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade.